in the cold heart of the Mongolian steppe, under skies that seemed endless and merciless. A child was born who would one day shake the foundations of the known world. His name would echo through history as both a legend and a curse: Genghis Khan, the man who forged the greatest contiguous empire humanity has ever seen. To some, he was a visionary leader, a man of unmatched military genius, religious tolerance, and iron discipline who united the warring Mongol tribes into a single unstoppable force. To others, he was nothing less than the embodiment of death itself, a destroyer of civilizations, a tyrant who drenched continents in blood and reduced cities to ash. But behind the endless battles and sweeping conquests lies a lesser-known tale, a story far more disturbing. This is the story of what Genghis Khan did to his slaves, the people who lived and died under his command, used not as humans, but as tools of terror. And as you'll soon discover, the horrors they endured were beyond imagination. Chapter 1: The Human Shields of the Khanen, the Chronicles of Ancient Warfare. There are countless tales of cruelty, but few compare to the cold-blooded tactics employed by Genghis Khan and his armies. Among his most disturbing strategies was the use of human shields. Tens of thousands of captives, forced to march at the front of his advancing troops, mere flesh barriers between the Mongol warriors and enemy arrows. Imagine the scene: a trembling mass of captives, men, women, even children, herded forward at sword point, the sun burning down on their faces as they were driven toward fortified walls. Behind them, the thunder of hooves. Ahead of them, the hiss of enemy arrows. They were not soldiers. They were sacrifices. Historical records describe how, during the Tangut campaign in 1210, Genghis Khan used as many as 30,000 captured Chinese soldiers as human shields. These men, stripped of choice or dignity, were forced to absorb the full fury of the Tangut defense's arrows, raining down like iron hail, catapults hurling stones that shattered bodies and bones. The battlefield became a living wall of agony, the screams of the dying echoing against the desert winds. And yet, this cruelty was no act of madness. It was cold, tactical brilliance. Genghis Khan understood the psychological warfare behind terror. To his enemies, this sight was devastating, a wave of terrified captives marching toward them, followed by the invincible Mongol cavalry. The defenders would hesitate, unwilling to slaughter their own countrymen, and in that moment of mercy, Genghis Khan would strike. A similar horror unfolded during the Khwarezmian campaign of 1222-1223. In the cities of Central Asia, thousands of Muslim prisoners were chained and sent forward as human shields. Some were even tied to siege engines, their bodies hurled into city walls by catapults to shatter fortifications and the will of those within. In one grisly account, Mongol soldiers are said to have bound prisoners to battering rams, forcing them to die in the very act of breaking through the gates of their own homeland. It was terror weaponized, death turned into a spectacle of obedience. This wasn't simply about killing, it was about control. It sent a message across the Silk Road: resist, and your people will die in front of you. Surrender, and you may live under the Khan's shadow. It is a chilling reminder that to Genghis Khan, life was nothing more than another tool of war. Chapter 2: The Chains of Labor and Humiliation. But death wasn't the only fate awaiting his captives. For those unlucky enough to survive the battlefield, a lifetime of unthinkable labor and humiliation followed. The Mongol Empire, vast and unrelenting, needed hands to build its roads, canals, and fortresses. These hands belonged to slaves. Captives were forced into grueling servitude, digging canals that stretched across deserts, hauling stone and timber for military camps, constructing siege machines, and maintaining the endless supply lines that fed Genghis Khan's armies. The punishment for exhaustion was death. The punishment for disobedience was worse. Slaves were often worked until their bodies gave out, left to die where they fell. Entire populations were enslaved to serve the Mongol war machine. After the conquest of cities like Bukhara and Samarkand, thousands of artisans, blacksmiths, and laborers were spared not out of mercy, but utility. They were scattered across the empire, forced to serve their new master's grand designs. But even beyond labor, Genghis Khan turned cruelty into entertainment. Some historical records speak of fights to the death staged for his amusement. Slaves forced to battle each other, or wild animals before his court. Blood was entertainment. Suffering was spectacle. It was a dark theater where human life meant nothing. There are accounts that even describe slaves being used as test subjects for Mongol weaponry, their bodies pierced by arrows or swords as demonstrations of strength before foreign envoys. The message was clear. Under the Khan's rule, humanity itself could be reduced to property, and property could be destroyed at will. In these acts, we glimpse the terrifying psychology of Genghis Khan, part ruler, part god, demanding absolute submission through a blend of awe and terror. To live under him was to exist in the shadow of his wrath, knowing mercy was a rare and fleeting illusion. Chapter 3. Loyalty. Through horror. Among the most disturbing aspects of Genghis Khan's reign was the way he demanded absolute loyalty and how he tested it. His methods were often barbaric, meant not only to ensure obedience, but to break the very soul of those who served him. One of the most chilling examples comes from the siege of Otrar in 1219, when one of his envoys was murdered by the governor of the city. Genghis Khan's fury was unstoppable. After conquering the city, he captured the governor's family. The governor's son, himself a captive, was brought before him. In a test of twisted loyalty, the Khan ordered the young man to execute his own father. The son obeyed, his hands trembling as he carried out the horrific deed, only to be executed moments later by the Khan's command. This gruesome ritual was not mere cruelty, it was control through despair. By forcing captives to destroy what they loved, Genghis Khan ensured that no trace of rebellion or identity remained. During the siege of Nishapur in 1221, the horror reached its peak. When news came that Genghis Khan's son-in-law had been killed within the city, his rage turned divine. He ordered the complete annihilation of Nishapur. Every living being, men, women, children, even animals, was slaughtered. The rivers ran red for days, in an act of chilling psychological cruelty. Genghis Khan forced his own daughter to witness the massacre, to see with her own eyes the price of her husband's death. The Khan's vengeance was absolute, but it came with a lesson. Even his bloodline was not free from the cost of his wrath. It was in such moments that Genghis Khan revealed the terrifying core of his rule. Loyalty built not on love or respect, but on fear so deep it became faith. Chapter 4. The Slavery of Flesh. The darkest chapter of Genghis Khan's empire was not written on the battlefield but in the private chambers of his palaces, where sexual slavery and exploitation ran rampant. The Khan's reputation for cruelty extended into his personal life. Historical sources recount that he took hundreds of wives and concubines, many seized from conquered lands. For these women, defeat meant not death but something far worse. After the fall of a city, Genghis Khan's soldiers would round up women deemed beautiful or noble. Some were sent as gifts to Mongol generals. Others were presented to the Khan himself. Their age, religion, or status mattered little. They were spoils of war, stripped of freedom, dignity, and identity. Within the Khan's camps, these women were kept as property symbols of his domination, living trophies of his conquests. He shared this practice with his sons and commanders, granting them permission to claim women as they pleased, thus institutionalizing a system of sexual slavery across the Mongol Empire. Many women bore his children, willingly or otherwise. From these unions came new dynasties, some powerful, others forgotten. Among them was Kublai Khan, his grandson through a Tangut princess, who would later become the founder of China's Yuan dynasty. This merging of bloodlines may have strengthened the empire politically, but it came at the cost of unimaginable suffering. Each union carried with it a legacy of conquest, coercion, and broken humanity. Modern genetic studies reveal something extraordinary and haunting. Nearly 0.5% of the world's male population, roughly 16 million, men carry genetic markers, traceable to Genghis Khan. His bloodline, born from both conquest and cruelty, still flows through the veins of humanity today. Behind this statistic lies a story not of glory, but of violence, the silent inheritance of one man's reign of terror. Chapter 5. The Paradox of the Khanand. Yet, to call Genghis Khan merely a monster would be to ignore the complexity of his legacy. He was both destroyer and creator, barbarian and visionary. His laws, known as the Yasa, brought order to chaos. His empire established trade routes that would later become the Silk Road, arteries connecting east and west. He embraced religious tolerance at a time when most rulers demanded uniform belief. But this vision was forged in the fires of unimaginable brutality. For every city he built, 100 were destroyed. For every life improved under Mongol law, thousands perished beneath Mongol steel. Perhaps that is what makes Genghis Khan's story so haunting. He was not driven by sadism alone, but by a ruthless logic, and understanding that fear is the most powerful form of governance. His empire was not merely built on conquest, it was built on the bones of those who dared to resist. Epilogue. The eternal shadow. 8 centuries later, the world still speaks his name with awe and dread. His face adorns Mongolian currency. His story is told as both legend and warning. His empire has long since crumbled, but his influence endures in the borders of nations, in the blood of millions, in the very fabric of world history. But beyond the myth, beyond the grandeur of empire, lies a darker truth, the truth of the slaves who marched before his armies, who labored under his whips, who died nameless beneath the steppe sky. They are the forgotten voices of history, the price paid for one man's immortality. So the next time you hear the name Genghis Khan, remember not only the conqueror, the ruler, the visionary, but also the monster who turned human lives into stepping stones for his empire. Because behind every empire lies a mountain of bones, and behind every legend, a shadow that never fades.